Steven Seagal walked through the tall glass doors of Titan Shield Cybersecurity, one of the most advanced security firms in the country. The lobby buzzed with analysts, developers, and tech geniuses tapping away at keyboards. People expected a former Navy unit leader, a martial arts legend, a man known for discipline and intensity. What they did not expect was Steven Seagal walking in with his 8-year-old daughter holding his hand. She had a small pink backpack, a tablet tucked under her arm, and a calm confidence in her eyes. The moment they appeared together, a wave of confused stares spread across the lobby. A group of young employees nudged each other, failing to hide their smirks. "Is he seriously bringing his kid to the interview?" one whispered. "This is cybersecurity, not kindergarten," another chuckled. Steven heard every word, but he didn't react. He simply guided his daughter to a chair beside the reception desk and gently brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "You okay here, sweetheart?" he asked. She nodded with a quiet smile. "I'll just play on my tablet." But even that simple gesture made a few workers laugh again. "Cute. Maybe she'll teach us ABCs," someone joked. Steven ignored them and waited calmly. Years of discipline had taught him that silence was stronger than anger. Still, the disrespect in the room was impossible to miss. People judged him instantly, not because he lacked skill, but because they assumed a man bringing a child couldn't possibly be serious about a high-level security job. Inside the interview chamber, the executives prepared a list of advanced cybersecurity questions they believed Steven wouldn't be able to answer. After all, what does a martial artist know about modern cyber threats? Their confidence grew when they saw him enter with his daughter following close behind. Some raised eyebrows, others exchanged awkward smiles. One executive leaned toward another and whispered, "Let's just get this over with." But Steven's daughter quietly stood near the wall, observing everything around her: the screens, the patterns, the blinking servers, the subtle network data scrolling in real time. Nobody noticed how focused she was. Nobody realized how much she understood. Because in less than an hour, the people laughing at her would be begging for her help. And what happened next would shock the entire building. As the video moves forward, I want to ask you something before the real twist begins. White right pointing backhand index. Which country and city are you watching this story from? Type it below. I love seeing how this story connects people worldwide. Now let's dive deeper. Steven Seagal knew he didn't look like the typical applicant for a cybersecurity interview. With his broad shoulders, calm eyes, and quiet, intimidating presence, he looked more like a man who belonged on a battlefield than in a glass-walled, polished tech company. But that didn't matter to him. What mattered was proving himself again. After years of stepping away from the spotlight, this job was a chance for stability, and more importantly, for a better life for his daughter. He held his daughter Aiko's hand as they walked through the shiny corporate lobby. She was only 12, but incredibly sharp, with those same observant eyes as her father. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it was usually something clever. The receptionist looked at them, confused. Sir, you brought your daughter? To the interview?" People in the waiting area turned to stare. A few smiled mockingly. One man whispered loudly to his friend, "Bro thinks this is bring your kid to work day." Another laughed. "Is he serious? This is a cybersecurity position, not a daycare." Steven didn't respond. He simply guided Aiko to a seat. She sat down quietly, swinging her legs, looking around the room with curiosity instead of fear. Inside the interview hall, things weren't much different. The interview panel, 3 men and 1 woman, exchanged glances as soon as Steven walked in with Aiko. They didn't even try to hide their judgment. "Mr. Seagal," said the lead interviewer, "this is a professional environment. Bringing a child could be seen as unprofessional." Steven shifted slightly. "She's not a distraction," he said calmly. "She'll sit quietly." But the interviewers weren't convinced. One of them smirked. "And if she cries? Or interrupts? This is a very serious, high-pressure job." Steven's jaw tightened, but Aiko squeezed his arm gently, reminding him to stay collected. The interview began. They drilled him with questions about cybersecurity protocols, breach responses, encryption layers, system vulnerabilities, and Steven answered each one with surprising expertise. The panel looked increasingly impressed, but still, they weren't satisfied. "Your experience is impressive," the female interviewer admitted. "But this company handles extremely sensitive data. You can't just bring your daughter here whenever you want." Steven nodded. "I understand. Today was an exception." But then, as if perfectly timed by fate, something unexpected happened. The room lights flickered. The screens on the wall glitched into static. A red warning message flashed across every monitor. Security breach detected, level 5 threat. The interviewers froze. What the? This can't be happening. We just upgraded the firewall last week. Panic spread instantly. The company headquarters operated the data of millions of users across multiple countries. A breach could mean disaster. Sirens began to beep. Someone shouted in the hallway. We're under cyber attack. The interviewers rushed to their terminals, typing frantically. It's bypassing our intrusion detection system. Whoever this is, they're good. We don't have enough time. Stephen stood behind them calmly, watching the code flood the screens like an unstoppable wave. Meanwhile, Aiko tilted her head. Dad, that's not a normal attack. Stephen looked down at her. You see something? Aiko stepped forward, surprising everyone. The lead interviewer snapped. Little girl, this is not the time. But she ignored him and pointed at the streaming code. That pattern, the way it loops every 8 seconds. It's not a brute force attack. It's a deep learning adaptive worm. If you try to fight it with your firewalls, it'll evolve and rewrite itself. The room went silent. The female interviewer blinked. How do you know that? Aiko shrugged. I study with Dad. And I solve puzzles. Before anyone could stop her, she sat at the free terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard with shocking speed. Every interviewer stared in disbelief. What is she doing? Wait, is she tracing the worm? She shouldn't even know this is possible. Stephen watched calmly, arms crossed, as if he already knew exactly what his daughter was capable of. Within seconds, Aiko identified the worm's pattern, predicted its next adaptation, and created a counterloop that cornered the malware into a digital dead end. The screen stopped flashing. The alarm quieted. A final message appeared. Threat neutralized. The room was dead silent. One interviewer whispered. She saved the entire system. Another muttered, almost in shock. Your daughter just did what our whole team couldn't do. Aiko looked up innocently. Is the interview over? Everyone laughed, not mockingly this time, but in disbelief and admiration. And in that moment, the entire company realized. They hadn't just underestimated Steven Seagal. They had underestimated the team he came with. For a long moment, no one in the interview room moved. No one spoke. No one even breathed too loudly. It was as if time itself had paused just to acknowledge what had happened. A 12-year-old girl, a distraction, a problem, an unprofessional choice, had just saved $1 billion company from a catastrophic cyber attack. And she made it look easy. The lead interviewer cleared his throat. Mr. Seagal. Stephen? I don't even know what to say. Stephen rested a hand on Aiko's shoulder. She likes solving puzzles, he said calmly. But the pride in his voice was impossible to hide. The female interviewer leaned forward, stunned. What she did, that wasn't puzzle solving. That was advanced level cybersecurity. That was. She turned to the others. That was genius. Aiko looked at her feet, embarrassed by the attention. I just helped, she murmured. But the interview was no longer about getting a job. Something much bigger was happening. The CEO arrives. Before anyone could continue, the glass doors burst open. A tall, intimidating figure stepped inside, the CEO himself, Victor Hale. A man with a reputation so fierce that even senior executives avoided crossing him. Behind him, security officers poured into the room. Who stabilized the breach? Victor demanded, scanning the room with sharp, frozen eyes. The interviewers turned slowly and pointed at Aiko. The CEO blinked. Huh? Are you joking? The lead interviewer shook his head. She traced the adaptive worm. Contained it. Neutralized it. Victor stepped closer, staring at the small girl who barely reached his waist. His voice softened a little, but only a little. What's your name? Aiko, she said. Then, quickly correcting herself, Aiko Seagal. Victor nodded. Do you understand what you just prevented? Aiko hesitated. Something bad. The CEO gave a short breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. Something unimaginably bad. That worm wasn't designed to steal data. It was designed to erase everything. Our systems. Our backups. Our partner networks. Millions of users' data. Our entire infrastructure. He paused, letting that sink in. If that attack had succeeded, he continued, this company would have been destroyed. Aiko blinked innocently. Oh, Then I'm glad I helped. The CEO turned to Stephen. Where did she learn something like that? Stephen straightened. From me. And from herself. Victor's eyes narrowed, not with suspicion, but with interest. He gestured for Stephen and Aiko to follow him out of the room. Walk with me, he said. They followed Victor through a long hallway lined with glass offices. Employees whispered as they passed. That's the guy who brought his kid. That little girl saved the whole building. I heard the attack came from an international syndicate. Finally, they entered an enormous office overlooking the city skyline. Victor closed the door. Then he turned to Stephen, arms crossed. What were you before this? Victor asked. Before applying for an entry-level cybersecurity job. Stephen didn't answer immediately. He wasn't hiding anything, he just didn't know how to compress his life into one sentence. I've served, Stephen said finally. I've worked in protection, intelligence, field operations, a little of everything. Victor raised an eyebrow. Military? Something like that, Stephen said. And your daughter? Victor asked, turning to Aiko. She's extraordinary. Stephen smiled softly. She's observant. Her mother was brilliant too. Aiko looked up at him. She loved when he talked about her mom. Victor paced slowly. Stephen, do you have any idea who launched that attack? Stephen shook his head. No. But Victor seemed to. He walked to his desk, opened a secure file, and slid a tablet towards Stephen. On the screen was a symbol, a black serpent coiled around a circuit board. Stephen's eyes hardened instantly. You know them? Victor asked. Stephen nodded once. Yes. And they don't attack without a reason. Victor leaned closer. I believe you were the reason. The air thickened. Even Aiko froze. What? Stephen asked. Someone knew you were coming here today, Victor said. Someone wanted to send a message. Stephen clenched his fists. Old shadows he thought he'd outrun began crawling back into his mind. This isn't over, Victor continued. That worm was just the opening move. Aiko's small voice cut through the tension. Dad? Are they dangerous? Stephen knelt beside her, placing a protective hand on her cheek. They're dangerous to everyone, he said softly, except you. She frowned. Why except me? Because you, Stephen whispered, are stronger than they are. Victor broke the silence with a deep breath. Stephen? I'm not offering you the entry-level position anymore. Stephen stood. I understand. No, Victor said. You misunderstand. He looked at Aiko with respect, real respect, before turning back to Stephen. I'm offering you something bigger. Something classified. Something that uses your experience and her talent. Aiko blinked. Me too. Victor nodded. If you agree, yes. I want both of you. A father-daughter unit. An analytical mind and a strategic mind. Together, you're something this company has never seen. Stephen hesitated. He wasn't sure if he wanted to bring Aiko into something dangerous. But Victor sensed his fear. You won't be putting her in danger, the CEO said calmly. You'll be protecting millions. Aiko tugged her father's sleeve. Dad, I want to help. Like today. Stephen's heart tightened. This wasn't the life he planned for her. But maybe it was the life she was meant for. He looked into her determined eyes. Then nodded slowly. All right, he said. We'll do it. Victor smiled, the first genuine smile Stephen had ever seen from him. Good, the CEO said. Because the next attack has already begun. The moment Victor said, the next attack has already begun, Stephen felt a familiar chill crawl down his spine, one he hadn't felt in years. It was the quiet warning of danger approaching, danger he had hoped to keep far away from his daughter. Aiko looked up at him with wide eyes. Dad, what does he mean? Stephen rose slowly, shoulders tightening. It means someone's trying again. Victor tapped his desk. The lights dimmed and the huge wall screen behind him lit up. A digital map of the city appeared, full of glowing data points. One by one, several of them began flashing red. These, Victor said, walking toward the screen, are our satellite offices. And as of 5 minutes ago, they all began experiencing coordinated probing attempts. Someone is searching for our vulnerability. Aiko stepped closer, studying the red pulses. That's like, when someone tries different keys on a locked door, she said. Victor shot Stephen a look. You see? Most analysts take months to understand that. Stephen placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She sees patterns differently. Always has. The pattern Aiko sees. Aiko tilted her head and squinted. These dots, they're flashing in a rhythm. Victor frowned. A rhythm? Amimicham, she said. Look. This one flashes every 2 seconds, this one every 3, and this one every 5. Stephen felt the shift before anyone else did. Frequencies. Intervals. Numeric signals. Aiko gasped. Dad, it's not random. Someone is counting. She raced to Victor's keyboard and began typing, not invasive commands, but observational polls on the network logs. The adults watched, stunned, as she filtered the data through a visualization she built in seconds. The red blinking dots rearranged themselves into a shape. A coiled serpent. The same symbol they saw earlier. Victor stumbled back. That organization, they're marking territory. Stephen's jaw tightened. They're warning us they're not done. But why? Aiko asked. Why are they doing this to you? Stephen hesitated. He had spent years avoiding the answer to that question. A long time ago, he began, I exposed someone powerful. Someone who didn't like losing. Who? Victor asked sharply. A man known only as. Before Stephen could finish, the building alarm blared. Wheo, wheo, wheo. The lights flickered. The floor trembled. Victor spun to the intercom. What now? A voice crackled through the speakers. Unauthorized breach detected in Sector 12. Physical access point compromised. Physical. Not digital. Stephen's eyes sharpened instantly. They're here, he said. Not online. In the building. Aiko clutched his sleeve. Dad. He knelt quickly and held her hands. Listen to me, Aiko. Stay with Victor. Don't leave this room. But. No arguments. I'll come back. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to protest again, but then she nodded bravely. Stephen stood. The old sense of purpose settled on him like armor. Victor stared at him. Do you know what you're walking into? Yes, Stephen said. And so do they. He stepped out of the office and moved through the hallway with calm, controlled precision. The alarms painted the walls red. Employees rushed past him in panic, but Stephen walked with the confidence of a man who had faced darker battles. By the time he reached Sector 12, 2 security officers were already down, alive, but unconscious. A black, circular device blinked on a sealed door panel. Stephen recognized it immediately. A pulse detonator. Silent. Electric. Deadly. He disabled it with a twist and a pull, muscle memory guiding his hands. Inside the room, servers hummed loudly. The air was cold, the kind of cold caused by machines running at maximum capacity. But something else stood out. Footsteps. Multiple. Moving deeper into the server bay. Stephen followed. At the far end, 2 masked intruders in tactical black suits worked on a portable rig connected to Titan Shield's mainframe. Their leader, a taller figure with a serpent insignia on his sleeve, looked up first. Stephen Seagal, he said, voice distorted through a modulator. We expected you, but not this soon. Stephen stepped forward. You made a mistake coming here. The leader tilted his head. We didn't come for you. Stephen's heart sank. They came for the one who saved them earlier. Aiko, he whispered. The intruder nodded slowly. The child. The prodigy. We saw her work. We want her. Stephen moved in an instant. A blur. A strike. A takedown. He slammed the first attacker against the server stack, disabling him in seconds. The second swung a metal baton. Stephen blocked, twisted, and swept him to the ground. Only the leader remained. You can't stop what's coming, he said quietly. Stephen's eyes hardened. I'll stop anything that threatens my daughter. The leader tapped a device on his wrist. A countdown appeared on all nearby screens. 1 minute and 30 seconds. A timed breach. A coordinated detonation to wipe the servers, and maybe more. Stephen lunged, but the leader smashed a smoke capsule on the ground. Thick black fog filled the room, and by the time it cleared, he was gone. Stephen sprinted back to Victor's office. When he burst through the doors, Aiko was still there. Safe. Holding Victor's hand. The relief nearly took him to his knees. Dad, she ran to him. You're okay. He hugged her tightly. I'm right here. Victor pointed to the countdown now appearing on every screen in the building. Stephen, what do we do? Stephen looked at Aiko. Aiko, he said softly, Can you stop this? She studied the countdown. Then she nodded. I'll try. The countdown continued blinking across every screen in the building. 01:29. 01:28. 01:27. Titan Shield employees scrambled through the halls in panic. The floor vibrated faintly as emergency lockdown shutters began to slide into position. The lights flickered red, casting long shadows across Victor's massive office. Aiko stood in the center of the room, eyes fixed on the clock. Stephen crouched beside her. You don't have to do this, he whispered. I want to, she said softly. I can help. Victor stepped forward. Aiko, whatever you do, you must act fast. That countdown isn't just a wipe, it's a structural pulse. If it hits 0, the mainframe crashes and the power grid collapses. The building systems will fry. Stephen's jaw tightened. And they escaped clean. Aiko sat at Victor's computer, the fastest terminal in the building. Her small fingers hovered over the keys. She took a deep breath. Dad, start counting with me. Stephen nodded. Okay. 1:15. Aiko began typing. Her first move was smart, freezing the system clock. But the worm was smarter. The countdown split into 2 timers. 1:15. 1:15. Aiko narrowed her eyes. They mirrored it. If I stop one, the other continues. She typed faster. Okay, then I'll trap both. The room filled with the rapid tapping of keys. Her fingers blurred across the keyboard. Victor stood behind her, watching in disbelief. How is she doing all of this with no training? Stephen didn't look away from his daughter. She watches everything. Understands everything. She just sees what others don't. Aiko pulled up the network schematic. Lines and nodes crossed the screen like a spider web. The worm isn't everywhere, she said. It's hiding in 3 root paths, here, here, and here. How can you tell? Victor asked. Aiko shrugged. They feel wrong. Stephen's heart swelled with pride and fear. The attackers return. Before they could continue, the hallway outside thundered with footsteps. Stephen stood instantly. Stay behind me, Aiko. The office doors held for only a moment before. Bang! An explosion shook the walls. Smoke burst through the seams. The doors flew inward, crashing to the floor. Silhouettes appeared in the smoke. 3 intruders. Armed. Moving with military precision. They were here for her. Get the girl, the leader growled. Stephen stepped forward with lethal calm. You're not touching her. The first attacker lunged with a shock baton. Stephen twisted, grabbed the man's wrist, and slammed him over his shoulder. The baton skidded across the floor. The second swung a rifle. Stephen sidestepped, delivered a crushing elbow to the throat, and swept the attacker to the ground. But the third, the leader, was faster than before. He circled Stephen with controlled movements. Your age slows you, the man said. Stephen smirked. Only if I let it. They clashed. A burst of rapid blows. A block. A parry. A counterstrike. Stephen moved with precision honed over decades. But the leader was skilled, well-trained, powerful, and relentless. Behind them, Aiko kept typing, never stopping, even as the room shook. The countdown drops. 00:39. 00:38. 0:37. Aiko spoke quickly, voice trembling only slightly. Dad, I need another minute. Stephen blocked a punch and threw the leader into Victor's desk. You've got it. The leader recovered instantly, pulling a blade from his sleeve. He charged. Stephen met him halfway. The blade slashed air as Stephen twisted, grabbed the attacker's wrist, and forced it down. The knife clattered to the floor. The leader punched. Stephen blocked. Another punch, Stephen absorbed it. Then, an opening. Stephen struck once. A precise hit to the jaw. The leader crumpled. For now. Stephen rushed to his daughter. How much time? 20 seconds. 0:20. Victor hovered behind her. Aiko, listen. If you can't stop it. I can, she said. She opened a deep-level override window. Lines of code rained down the screen like a waterfall. Stephen's heart pounded. He had seen bravery before, but this was something else. A child fighting a war no child should ever have to face. 0:15. She typed faster. 0:10. Almost there. 0:08. There. She hit enter. The timers froze. 00:07. 00:07. 007. All three turned to her. Is it over? Stephen asked. Aiko shook her head. No. It's paused. The worm is still alive. Stephen leaned closer. What do you need? She looked up at him with calm determination. I need to go inside the network. Deep. Where the worm is hiding. And you need to keep everyone away from me. Stephen placed a hand on her shoulder. You focus on the code. I'll guard you. Aiko took a breath. Okay. Restarting my trace. She pressed a key. The countdown flickered. 007. Then. It began in reverse. 00:08. 00:09. 00:10. Victor gasped. It's retreating. She's forcing it back up the chain. Stephen stepped in front of Aiko, ready for anything. Because if the enemy realized what she was doing, they would come for her again. And next time, they wouldn't send 3 men. They would send an army. The reversed countdown kept climbing upward. 00:10. 00:12. 00:14. To Victor, this was a miracle. To Stephen, it was hope. To Aiko, it was a battle. She inhaled deeply as she opened the system's deepest layer, an encrypted chamber known internally as the root core. Even Titan Shield's senior engineers rarely touched it. It was the brain, the final failsafe, the one place no hacker should ever reach. But the Serpent organization wasn't a normal threat. They had already slipped inside. Aiko whispered, I'm going in. Stephen placed his hand on her shoulder. I'm right behind you. She nodded and dove her hands into the keyboard. Aiko versus the worm. A digital storm filled the screens, red threads, encryption walls, recursive traps, and decoy data loops. Aiko scanned it all in seconds. They built a fortress around themselves, she murmured. Victor leaned closer. Can you break through it? Yes, she said. But not by fighting it. She pressed a key combination so fast Victor couldn't even follow it. The red fortress reshaped. Shrank. Merged into a single point. Stephen blinked. What did you do? Aiko smiled faintly. I made it chase a fake version of me. Victor gasped. A decoy, a digital shadow model. Aiko nodded. It thinks I'm in there. But I'm out here. Stephen grinned proudly. That's my girl. But then. The building lights went black. Boom. Emergency power flicked on. The halls glowed with dim red strips. A low, mechanical hum vibrated through the floor. What was that? Victor whispered. Aiko remained calm. They're switching tactics. The enemy escalates. The office speaker screeched, then a voice came through. A deep, distorted voice. Steven Seagal, you disappoint me. Stephen's jaw clenched. He recognized the tone, the coldness, the disdain. A ghost from his past. Aiko, the voice continued, your father never told you the truth about us, did he? Aiko froze. What truth, Dad? Stephen stepped between her and the speakers. Don't listen to him. But the voice pressed on. You exposed us once, but you didn't finish the job. And now your daughter pays the price. Stephen glared at the ceiling. If you touch her. You can't stop what's coming, Stephen. She's too valuable. A mind like hers belongs to us. Aiko straightened in her chair. I don't belong to you. The voice chuckled, a chilling, metallic sound. We'll see. The connection cut. A terrible silence followed. The building locks down. Suddenly, metal shutters slammed down around the office windows. Clang, clang, clang. Aiko startled. Dad. Stephen pulled her close. They're sealing us in. Victor hurried to the control panel. They've taken full control of our infrastructure. I can't override anything. Stephen scanned the room. How much time do we have? Before Victor could answer, Aiko said, calm but urgent. Not long. She pointed to the screen. The mirror countdown, the one she had forced backwards, started changing direction. 00:14. 00:13. 00:12. Back downward. The worm found my decoy, she said. And now it knows I'm here. Stephen knelt in front of her. Can you stop it? Aiko didn't look afraid. She looked determined. Yes, she whispered. But I have to go deeper. Past the root. Into the worm's core. What happens if you fail? Victor asked quietly. Aiko hesitated. The system crashes. Everything collapses. And the building goes into destructive lockdown. Stephen felt a cold dread grip his chest. Meaning? The building blows the servers to stop the spread, Victor said. It's an automatic fail-safe. Stephen grabbed Aiko's hands gently. You don't have to do this. We'll find another way. Aiko shook her head. Dad, if I don't try, everyone loses. Stephen swallowed hard. The bravery in her eyes reminded him painfully of her mother. He finally nodded. Then I'm here. Whatever happens. I won't let anything touch you. Aiko began typing again, faster than ever before. Code flooded the screen. Layers peeled back like curtains being yanked open. The digital world narrowed into a glowing tunnel. I'm inside, she whispered. The worm's core appeared. A swirling red vortex, snapping with electric tendrils. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Victor gasped. This is beyond anything we've ever seen. Aiko leaned closer. It's talking. Stephen frowned. What? The vortex shifted. Lines of text appeared. Hello, little one. Aiko stiffened. It knows me. More text appeared. We've been waiting. Stephen stepped in front of her screen, even though he knew he couldn't block code. You're not touching her. Aiko squeezed his arm gently. It's okay, Dad. She typed. You can't have me. The worm responded almost instantly. We already do. Suddenly, the countdown jumped. 012-005. Victor shouted. Aiko. She didn't panic. She didn't scream. She focused. This is the final layer, she said. If I break this, I break the worm. Stephen gripped the back of her chair. I'm with you. Every second. Aiko pressed her finger on the keyboard. Enter. The screen exploded with code. The vortex lunged toward her trace. For a moment, everything froze. Then, Aiko whispered, I think I found its weakness. Stephen leaned in. What is it? Aiko's eyes narrowed. It copied me, but it doesn't understand me. She typed one final command. And the screen went white.